Good morning. I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds or so, just while people are still joining and catching up their audio, and then we'll make a start very shortly. Thanks. Okay, let's make a start. Yeah, good morning or good afternoon. Either way, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today for this Parallels webinar. Looking at Parallels Remote Application Server and how we can utilize it to keep your data safe, by creating a secure, compliant VDI or centralized desktop environment. My name's Paul Fisher. I'm a pre-sales engineer for Parallels, based out of the UK, but covering a much wider area in all of EMEA. So let's move on and look at the agenda for today. So a very quick intro of Parallels, just in case we're new to you. And then we'll look at some key facts in cybersecurity and some fairly worrying trends, I guess. And then we'll get into an overview of Remote Application Server, and then sort of applying some of the features and how they can be utilized to help with this security issue that we're looking at today. And then we'll move fairly quickly from that into a demo, again, where we'll highlight certain features, key elements of Remote Application Server to help with security. And then there's a Q&A functionality within the WebEx today, so please, if you have questions as you go through, pop them in there, and then hopefully, time permitting, we will have a quick look at those questions at the end. So Parallels then, it's a global company with a large number of customers, business customers and consumer customers, and really we have a portfolio of products which are focusing primarily on providing access to Windows desktops or applications. And we're perhaps most famous for Parallels Desktop. And actually, that's where the name Parallels came from. And that's about running Windows applications in parallel with Mac applications on your Mac device, on your MacBook, for example. And it's not just limited to applications. It's the whole operating system from Windows, and many others can be run on there. We have Parallels Toolbox for Windows and Mac, which is it's a set of useful tools that you can use every day to help your work be made that little bit easier as you go through your day. For example, I'm using it now when it's in presentation mode to hide any unwanted pop-ups. Then we have Parallels Access, which is just about giving access to your device remotely. Maybe it's more of a help desk scenario where you're helping out your customers, users, so you can use Parallels Access for that. And then really we're moving into now the flagship products. The first one being Remote Application Server, which obviously we'll talk about more today. And then also we have Parallels Mac Management, which is a plugin for SCCM, and that allows you to manage your Mac devices within your existing Windows infrastructure. So we believe that if you've got the setup like most companies, where predominantly it's Windows based devices that need managing, with maybe 10% of Macs that are sort of cropping up, and maybe that's a growing percentage. But we can manage those Macs in much the same way as we can the Windows, without a separate product as such to do that. Okay, so let's look at some of these trends then that we're seeing today within cybersecurity. Ransomware is a huge increase, 500% increase recently, and in the UK, I think there was an example last week of a company called travelex, which had fallen foul, we believe, to ransomware. I don't think it's confirmed yet, but that was the suspicion. But yeah, 500% increase in ransomware attacks, which essentially causes data loss. They're holding your data to ransom and hoping that you'll pay them a huge amount of money to do that, to get that data back. And unfortunately, the more we pay up, the more they target the businesses, and sort of the worse it's getting. A slightly different topic in the digital transformation and sort of trends of how people are working. A recent survey saw that 85% in over 15,000 businesses that were surveyed have said that location-based working and flexibility within that, so BYOD or remote working, is really important to them and helps productivity. And then also with these kind of ransomware and just data breaches, data loss, security attacks in general, it's predicted that it's going to cost businesses $5 trillion by 2024. So how is Parallel facilitating that digital transformation? And I guess still within that transformation, there's still aspects that we need to concern ourselves about when it comes to security. So we need to monitor our environments and control the access and make sure that we've got really tight control over that. And we do that with client policies and filtering within Remote Application Server. As I say, we'll dive into that more as we go through. And within that access control, we want to make sure it's as secure as possible, and we can do that with implementing multi-factor and maybe smart card authentication. And again, there are other mechanisms that we can add on to that to increase that security when it comes to ensuring the right people are getting access and no data leakage, etc., etc. So again, BYOD and remote working is a big part of this sort of digital transformation, and as mentioned, within that has additional security concerns potentially, but also within the very nature of that, it also tackles other security concerns. But BYOD enables employees to work from their own devices, bring your own device, or just work remotely, so they can work from home or wherever they are, different offices. Moving around offices is much easier as well as remote working. And of course, we need to, as I've mentioned, provide secure access to that. The other benefits with remote working and BYOD and Remote Application Server in general is you can easily switch between different devices. So yeah, you may be in the office connecting from your thin client to your remote desktop, working away. You then need to go home early to pick up the kids. You can then switch to your mobile device while you're traveling. And then once you've got home, you could even then, from your own laptop at home, pick up the working and carry on remotely at home. So, it gives employees more flexibility. We can extend the day potentially, or just, like I say, give them more flexibility to work the hours that suit them best. And data protection, that is a big feature, and just fundamentally how Remote Application Server solution works. Your data is almost instantly more secure. And again, we'll go into why that is as we go through. So let's look at Remote Application Server, or RAS as we shorten it to, and what it is. Essentially, it's about providing secure remote access to Windows applications or desktops, and that's from anywhere, any device. And Remote Application Server is an easy-to-use solution. It's flexible and platform agnostic. Easy to use. We do get constant feedback of how easy it is to set up compared to our competition. It's very low on infrastructure requirements, so that's just part of making it easier. Less configuration to do, the easier it is to deploy and manage. It's flexible in terms of, I suppose what we like to say is we can deploy or deliver the right application or desktop to the user. So we're not if it's very sort of low resource task-based users, maybe we just want to publish applications to them. You might only need a couple of applications, business applications, so let's just publish those applications to those users. Maybe we have still maybe the task-based users, but they want to have a full VDI desktop. We can deliver that desktop to them, maybe from what we call a session-based desktop, which is the most cost-effective way of delivering a VDI-looking desktop to the user. But maybe there are requirements for true VDI, as we would say, or desktop-based VDI, which is a more costly model, but still we can deliver that, and we can deliver it on with the different operating systems. So maybe some users still need Windows 7, although we're kind of on the clock for that. No support as of today, I think. No updates, but we can deliver Windows 8, maybe Windows 10, etc. to developers. So we can give them the different desktops. Yeah, it's about delivering the right desktop to the right users, helping us drive down the cost. We're platform agnostic. So we can fit in with your infrastructure today. Maybe you're deploying in VMware on premise. Maybe tomorrow you want to look at Hyper-V. Maybe you can see some cost advantages from there. We can support Hyper-V too. Or maybe with this day and age, we have the cloud. Maybe if you want to evaluate putting some workloads, some desktops, some applications in the cloud, whether that's Azure or AWS or any cloud platform, then we can integrate in with that as well. So security, obviously, a big thing with this topic today, and that's built in, from the ground up, essentially. Just the nature, as mentioned, of deploying remote application server means that all your data is in the data center. It's not being copied out to laptops, which are then being put in a bag and taken on the train or taken home, etc., etc. All that data is within the data center and secure, and accessing that data remotely is also encrypted and secured. We only need to open one port, for example, through the firewall, and that's SSL encrypted. And we have additional features such as smart card integration, two-factor authentication, SAML integration that can enhance that security even further. Reduce cost and complexity. Already touched on that a little bit with it from easy to use, but yeah, we reduce costs in a number of ways, really. We can look at the licensing. We're much more cost effective than the competition, but that's only a small part of it, really. As mentioned, we can deliver the right desktop or right application to the user, and that allows us to cut down costs. And then there are other aspects that we have, feature-rich load balancers that are included in our license. You don't need to go and buy additional third-party components potentially to create that solution. And as mentioned, with very small infrastructure, we don't need centralized database and all the sort of additional costs around that and making that high available, etc., etc. So we're highly available without that centralized database, which just makes it simpler, easier to manage, and reduces that complexity. The console is all wizard driven, and it's very easy to deploy new applications and desktops, and I'll certainly show you that when we get into the demo. On-demand agility, two aspects to that. I think firstly you might think about cloud, which is obviously true, but we have that same cloud ability, let's say, to our on-premise deployments. Even if that's a hybrid deployment, we have that ability as well. So as users are logging in, we can automatically create new servers, new VDI instances, etc., for those applications or desktops to be published from. And coming from the UK, I often give an example of a snow day where, basically when it snows in the UK, the place pretty much comes to a gridlock and no one can get into the office. So that might increase the demand of users connecting remotely all of a sudden, but we can scale up automatically to facilitate that. And we can connect from any device anywhere. So we have a plethora of clients. So if you went to the Apple application store, you could download the application for your iPad or iPhone. Similar with Android, we've got Windows Windows clients, Mac clients, pretty much everything you can think of. If there's something that does fall outside of that, maybe an Xbox. I have tried from my Xbox. We can connect from any browser which is HTML5 compliant as well. And again, I'll show you that in the demo. So even though we've talked about being cost effective and our license being cost effective, we're still an enterprise ready solution. So we're feature rich. So I'll just go over some of the core capabilities of Remote Application Server really at a high level. Just to say, just to show really that there's lots of features in there, so you're not losing anything by the lower cost. So starting on the left, obviously application and delivery, desktop delivery. That's kind of core. And this is, I guess, in no particular order, but we also have PowerShell API and REST API integration or API availability, so that I suppose especially our ISP customers will use that and integrate that and automate a lot of their processes and bringing on new customers and deploying whole RAS farms through this API. We have universal printing, so any printer that's attached to the client device and they connect through to their application or desktop, they can print. Of course, with our security hat on, that might be something you want to disable externally, and of course we can do that, plus many others. As I say, we'll go through those as we go through. We're cloud ready, as mentioned. We've got built-in load balancing, as mentioned, and that we've got multiple terminal servers or session host servers will automatically load balance. And it's a bit more intelligent. It's not just round robin load balancing. It's a bit more intelligent. So it's looking at this CPU usage, the memory usage, number of users are on there, and load balancing accordingly. So users are getting the best available desktop or server to provide their applications. There is also what I call front-end load balancing, so the secure client gateways, important component that does that encryption of external access. We can load balance those, and we have our own, say, load balancing appliance for that. We have notification and scripts, so based upon events, we can notify the administrators, but also do something about it. Maybe that's add new secure gateways, add new publishing agents, which are our connection broker bits, new component servers within the infrastructure if we do have users logging in from that snow day. HTML5 compliance, as mentioned. We do have client management as well, so we can turn maybe aging PCs into thin client-like devices. Doesn't replace the operating system, but does improve the login experience for the users. Auto provisioning and scaling. Again, as mentioned, that's whether that's on premise or in the cloud, we can have that a bit availability or functionality. And I guess what's important about that, is it's one thing to scale up, but we also need to scale down, and that's something that we can do as well. So especially when we're looking at cloud deployments, that becomes important because we can sort of obviously reduce the cost of those servers that are been spun up. We want to remove them so they're not incurring that cost. Multi-factor authentication, centralized applications. So again, that's fairly core. All the applications and desktops are centralized within your data center, so you can apply a lot more security on that. You know where it is as well. It's an important point. We have client policies, so we can centrally manage all the client features and functions, basically. So again, we'll talk about that more in the demo, but that's kind of a core feature of ensuring that maybe files cannot be copied in and out of the network from that desktop to the user's end PC at home, so we can control that side of things, which is obviously key. We have some AI with the session pre-launch functionality. So we can learn users' habits. So if on a Monday they're always opening PowerPoint at 10 o'clock, then we know that, and we can pre-launch that application to increase the speed in which they get their application. So yeah, we're pre-launching it and making it look really snappy for the user. We have REST API, which mentioned was similar to API. Granular permissions within the management console. So we have a single pane of glass with the management console. So you can manage multiple sites, whether that's in Azure or on-premise. But also you can give that out to help desk users and give them permissions just to manage the users, maybe log off a session or remote shadow a session or kill off an application. But obviously they're not allowed to make changes to the infrastructure. So we could do that with those granular permissions. SAML authentication. I'll show you a little example of that in the demo. We have multi-tenant architecture. So that's particularly useful for our ISP customers, where they've got multiple customers, maybe with different domains, etc., that they want to support. And we can do that, share the infrastructure again to drive down the cost of the solution for that particular scenario. And the last point here, Microsoft Azure. I've already mentioned that we support that. We do. With the latest release, actually in 17.1, which came out at the back end of last year, this brought greater support for Microsoft Azure, and we call it sort of Azure Hypervisor. So we can add it in the same way as we can on-premise. So we can add in our Azure subscription in the same way we can add a Hyper-V server maybe, or a VMware Virtual Center, and deploy desktops and servers from a template that's based out of Azure. So yeah, the management has gone even easier from that point of view. So how does Parallels RAS help then when we're looking at this security concept? So as mentioned, we can enable mobile workforce. We obviously got the benefits of that, but we need to reinforce that security. And some of the features that allow us to do that is providing access, from any device, but providing that additional multi-factor authentication. And we include providers such as Google Authenticator and any provider such as Azure AD or Ping Identity. There's lots of them. Also, those providers coming up now with SAML support, and we can integrate in with those. We have client policies controlling what can be accessed, from the devices. So, yeah, if we want to ensure that no data is being taken out of the environment, we could disable USB drives. We could disable drive redirection in general. We can stop clipboard access. All those sort of things we can stop by these client policies, and we can have a bit of intelligence around that. So we can say, okay, they've connected from home, so they're connecting outside of our network, then we'll apply that policy. But if they're inside our network, okay, that's fine. They can copy and paste between their client and the remote desktop or remote applications, should we see fit to allow that. And we can disable printing as well if we wanted to. Again, and it's down to choice, and maybe different groups of users we can give different policies to as well. We have monitoring and reporting, again, built into our license, so no additional hidden gotchas there. And that allows us to monitor the infrastructure, plan for future growth, and potentially detect any unauthorized access as well. Implementing VDI can allow you to avoid sort of ransomware attacks by blocking various software. So again, it's that bringing in the desktop and applications into the data center just allows us to have much better control over what users are doing, what can be installed. You've got more security advantages. You know where your data is, as mentioned, and we do have a lot of little features that I say little. They're important. We can quickly redeploy any servers or VDI instances. If we do find there's been a breach, we can redeploy that and kind of wipe out any nasty viruses that are on there. And we can also do things like when users log off their desktops at the end of the day, we can automatically redeploy that. So if there is a virus that's got onto that particular VDI instance, and when the user logs off, that's destroyed, back to the fresh template as it was at the start of the day, and that virus could be eradicated as quickly as that. So looking a little bit more then on preventing malicious software and cyber attacks. I suppose I mentioned this again already, but we can control what users can do in terms of uploading and downloading files. So we've got full control over that. Basically, we might want to deny that for external users, as I've said. We have built-in denial DOS attacks to block users if they're trying to attack, or if someone's trying to attack our secure gateways. I'd say that's the sort of the single point of entry, which is secured and encrypted, but we have sort of built-in preventions to stop any attacks on that. We can block access from users connecting, depending on the sort of location. So if we do have a suspicious location, we can block access to that as well. And again, as mentioned, we can keep that data segregated in our data center, so we know where it is. So these are a few sort of case study highlights. I'm not going to go into too much detail of those, but the general theme of these is how easy it is to deploy remote application server and manage it going forward, and how they had sort of greater access to connect from anywhere, or on any device, and in this case, including Chromebooks. Okay, so that moves us into a demo. So let me just end this slideshow. Well, let's start with. Oops. What did I do? Okay, so let's start with the server side, essentially, and of course I'll change hats. I'll show what it looks like when connecting from a user. What you're looking at here then is the Parallels Remote Application Console, management console. I've already logged in. I've sort of logged onto one of my servers, let's say, it's actually RAS1. Logged in, gone to the farm, looking at a particular site and looking at the designer. So as mentioned, sites, we can have multiple sites in there. We could have multiple sites that are on premise, or another site could be out of Azure or AWS or another cloud. So we can have these multiple sites and manage them all from the same console. But yeah, we're looking at the design, and it's a good place to start. Really, it gives you an overview of my setup here, my demo lab, and the components within that. But it also shows you essentially how remote users would connect in to their back-end infrastructure, so their VDI instances or their application servers, and how that's all in the data center. So if we start on the left here, we've got remote clients, connecting through the internet. We do have our load balancer that sits at this point, which users then connect to the secure client gateway. And as mentioned, that's port 443 that's only required. And at that point, the SSL encryption is applied to the connection, and then users would then sort of be proxied on, and you could have additional firewalls and DMZs, things like that as well. And we can have forwarding gateways, so we can add another layer of secure gateways too. This is kind of a basic example. And then from that secure client gateway, they would connect to their back-end infrastructure. Now, the back-end infrastructure, as mentioned, around the different types of desktops that we deliver can be made up from different platforms. So at the top here, we've got terminal servers or session host servers. And within that, we can deploy anything from 2008 through to 2019. So we have a lot of flexibility within that. So if we still have legacy applications that need older operating systems, and we do still see that as a requirement, then we can deploy those from the same same environment. And we can deploy applications or full desktops, so we call the session-based desktops, and that's the most cost-effective way of delivering desktops and applications to users. The next section really is mainly focused around VDI, but this is where we kind of add in our VDI providers, so we can choose virtualization for on-premise, and gives you an idea of the different hypervisors and hyper-converged solutions that we support. Or we can also now choose cloud computing, which is Azure subscription. But once we've added our provider, we can then add in our, deploy our VDI instances from a template. And again, as mentioned, we can support Windows 7 at the moment through to Windows 10, and in any mix of that. And then also we have remote PCs as well. So technically, any client operating system on the network, we can provide that secure remote access to, which allows users to connect to their full PC that might be under the desk when they go home, but of course is securely accessed through that secure client gateway. Now, the other role that the secure client gateway does is provides the HTML5 portal as well, which I'll show you very shortly. The next other role within the solution is the publishing agent, also maybe known as a connection broker. It's the brains of the solution. So when we're talking about the initial authentication, the publishing agent handles that. It's talking to Active Directory to look at what user groups that user's in, and ensure the password's correct. But then it may be involved with that next layer of multi-factor authentication or SAML authentication. So it's involved with that. Once they've passed that authentication, it's figuring out where the user is, what client they're connecting from maybe, and providing a list of applications or desktops that user can connect to. And again, what I mean by that will become apparent shortly, and I log in as a user. It's also involved with the provisioning of VDI instances, or maybe provisioning from a template of session host servers as well. So when I talked about the auto scaling, if users are connecting to session host servers and we need to auto scale that, we can with the template management, and the publishing agents are involved in that. So yeah, as you see, that's the core. And as I have two servers, I have a highly available and highly scalable solution, and as mentioned, without you don't see a sort of database on this diagram anywhere. So yeah, two publishing agents. And you might notice that the host names are the same up here, so I've actually doubled up the roles there. So we've got secure client gateways and publishing agents, so two virtual machines within my infrastructure, highly available, highly scalable solution. Now, you notice when I brought up the VDI provider wizard here, there are other buttons. So even from this page, we can get access to lots of wizards that allow us to easily manage the solution. So if you wanted to add in new session host servers, sort of in a more manual fashion, we can do that there. If you want to add in additional remote PCs, gateways, again, we can add them in, and all these things can be scripted through that API that we talked about. So I guess once we have an infrastructure set up, maybe it's like this. The next thing from an admin point of view would be to publish something, and to do that we come to the publishing section. So we want to publish if we want to publish applications or desktops, we come to the same location. And you can see here I have a number of applications already deployed, number of desktops already deployed, different types, so session-based desktop that we talked about, desktop VDI, as we talked about as well. This cloud desktop is actually, it's a session host server group which automatically scales when users log in, so that auto scaling. But if we wanted to deploy some new resource, then we click on the wizard again, and then we have a number of options. So we can deploy an application, which is what I'll go through. There's a bit more to see through that wizard, but if it was a full desktop, so even a session-based VDI or desktop-based VDI, we'd choose that option. We can support and deploy application virtualization applications through AppV and Turbo.net. That's not to say we can't support other technologies such as cloud paging, just that we can quickly publish and enumerate the available applications through this wizard with these. We can just publish web links or documents, or maybe access to the user's files. So let's go back to application. I'm going to choose RD session host, but we can publish from VDI and remote PCs as well. I'm going to choose installed applications. I'm going to choose my cloud group. So what this is doing now is it's looking at all the servers within that group and bringing me back the available applications to publish. And then I can simply go through and say, yeah, Notepad, Thunderbird, GIMP, Firefox, they're the additional new applications I want to deploy. Bit of an overview of what we're doing. Click next and finish. Last little job, click apply. So there we can see the new applications are listed down there, and of course I can drag these around. I can put them in application groups and create new folders as well. If we look at the properties on this particular application, we could go in and change the name and some various sort of more advanced settings. But I wanted to highlight the filtering, because this is, I mentioned this a couple of times through the presentation. By default, anyone who passes or logs in through Active Directory or maybe passes multi-factor authentication as well would get access to this application. But if we wanted to apply that additional level of security, we can do that with the filtering. So we can filter it by user or user group. We can filter it by device name, the client operating system, the subnet they're connecting from, the MAC address, client MAC address, or the gateway. So we can use a combination of those to really lock down who would get access to Notepad++ in this instance. So it could be as a member of this Active Directory user group is connecting from this particular device, and we can do that for either device name or and MAC address maybe. Is it from an iPad potentially? And are they connecting from this location, this subnet? Therefore, they can log in and get Notepad++ there. We do also have the ability to license meter the applications as well, so we can restrict the number of users launching that application. Okay, so let's change hats a little bit and connect from a user perspective. Now, there are lots of different ways really users can connect. Maybe typically externally, users might want to go to or find it easy to go to a web portal. So let's start there. So I've already connected to my address. Let's type in my username and password, and we log in there. So during that sort of quick login process, it's it's checked my authentication really through just my AD credentials, and from that displayed the applications that I'm entitled to see, and we do see the new applications there that we just deployed. And just to give you a sense of how quickly that can be changed. Sorry, wrong one. Just close that. Go back here. If I wanted to get rid of this application, I can just go ahead, delete it, apply it, come back here, refresh, and that application's gone. So it's really quick to deploy new applications and remove applications. But yeah, so our password authentication, we could have added the additional multi-factor authentication onto that, but to give you a sense of the SAML authentication, if I go to a slightly different URL that I've set up, so single sign-on, you can see here now I've been asked to sign in with a different credential, so I can actually use my my live account. So this is allowing users from different organizations potentially, or different Active Directory directories to log in. So I can click on that. I logged in earlier, so I don't have to provide the password again just now. And we can see, similar, we have the applications set there. So moving on from that, so again, when it was logging in, it checked to see whether I had the client installed, and as I do, by default, it would launch with the native client, which is looks like that, installed on this Mac device. I have a choice now as a user. I can right-click and say launch with HTML5 client. If I didn't have the Parallels client installed, it would automatically default to the HTML5 only. But just to show you connecting just purely through the browser, I've right-clicked and selected HTML5. So you can see it's logging in. And we'll see PowerPoint launching. Now I'm going to go in all those messages and create a document. I'm going to go and create another document. And I can either minimize the application here, or I can click on this button here to take me back to my application listing. I can right click and say, yeah, let's launch another application. And let's create a document here as well. Now, the reason for doing that is I wanted to show you really that we're connecting through a browser. So it didn't need, as a user, didn't need to install any applications, just open up my browser. I'm not connected to a full desktop. I've just opened up applications, but even so, I have the ability to quickly flick between the not only the applications that I've opened, but the documents that I've got open as well. I have that ability there. And we have lots of enhancements, so when you get down to connecting from mobile devices, maybe a much smaller form factor and virtual keyboards, we have enhancements to allow one button access to specific keyboard shortcuts, which might be on that bespoke application. Pinch and zoom, as I said, quickly flicking between applications, even on that small form factor device. And of course, we can also launch full desktops as well. This normally will launch in a new tab, and then we'll get a Windows 10 looking full desktop, although this is a session-based VDI desktop that will appear any second for me. Okay, looks like it's, there we go. Just a little bit slow today. So yeah, so Windows 10 looking desktop. But the more cost-effective way is actually a session-based VDI, as we call it. So my profile didn't load properly there, so let's go ahead and log out and move on. So yeah, as mentioned, there is other ways to connect. Let's tidy this up. And we can do this through the native install client. And this is very similar looking, certainly functionality-wise, across whether it's a Windows device or an iPad or Android tablet as well. I'm going to connect to the same lab. You can see here we've got the new applications that we published as well. And if I expand applications here, we've got the Office applications as well. Now, of course, I could just double-click and launch these straight away. And you might have noticed this automatically appeared on here. As a user as well, I could say I want PowerPoint as a shortcut as well. And now I can just go ahead and launch these applications directly from my desktop. I don't need to launch any website or client. And of course, that's all secure. It's all going through port 4.3 and encrypted with SSL, etc. as well. And I can just launch desktops from here as well. So let's go with the cloud one. Create it on the desktop. So we can go ahead and launch that. And just while that's launching, the applications that are there are available in the Finder as well. So a user can just come and search in the Finder. And in the Windows world, they can come and just search in the Windows Start menu for applications, published applications, and just launch them in a similar sort of way as I was showing from the desktop. Again, this is a session-based VDI. It looks and feels like Windows 10, but it's not. So it's a many-to-one relationship. So we get many users on one server, making it more cost-effective than true desktop VDI, where we have one-to-one. So 100 users, we need 100 instances of virtual desktop there. Okay, I'm going to go back to my management console and just highlight a few more things there. I come back to the designer. We've talked about remote clients and securing that up. We can also do a similar sort of thing for local clients. Maybe we have different networks. We want to segregate those with security, so we have all our client devices on the network. We want a firewall between that and their desktops. Maybe those desktops are on another VLAN to the servers, etc. But we can provide, that secure access, even if it's a kind of an on-premise deployment. And as I say, we want to have separate networks that are secured, and we've got a firewall between them with minimal port access. Then, local clients can connect through that secure client gateway to their backend servers or desktops and applications. And again, we have all our data, which is within that network as well. So completely isolated from the client network. And that's just maybe a other way that we stop data being taken down to these clients and then taken home, left on trains, stolen, etc. So even if someone comes and steals these devices, there's nothing sensitive on there as well. So, universal printing was mentioned. There's some configuration in there. We don't have to do much. Works straight out of the box. Universal scanning support as well. In this connection area, this is where we can enable the multi-factor authentication. So anything essentially with a Radius we can support, but we do also support Google Authenticator as well. We're constantly adding to that list as we see certain products becoming more popular. The SAML configuration, so that SAML login that I showed you, that's all configured in there. We have the device management that I mentioned, where we can turn those maybe older aging PCs into thin client-like devices. We can do sort of manage those from a group perspective, and we can power manage those, reboot them, log them off. We can shadow those devices as well. So while we can shadow those devices, we can also obviously shadow the sessions that we've created. So you can see the 2 users that I've logged in there. So I might be able to remote control that, show the processes, kill off the processes, log those off. But we can do the actual devices that we've turned into those thin clients, and we can schedule various tasks. So we could say, on a Friday night, we want to shut down those machines. Monday morning, we want to turn them back on so that they're ready for the user. This is the policy section. So this is one of the key aspects of providing in greater data security and security in general. So we can have lots of different policies, and you see here I've got a specific policy for my Macs that are connecting. There's 2 aspects to this. There's the security side, so we might want to see the clipboard is disabled, disk drives we don't want to redirect, file transfer is disabled, printing is disabled. So therefore, anyone connecting externally, they really don't have very many options of getting data out of the network and leaving it on those laptops or home PCs, etc. So it's much more secure. and compliant. So yeah, there's the security side of things, but then it's just the general management. We might not want the users to be concerned about various RDP settings. So we can we can set that for them to the most optimal. So if they're connecting remotely, we might want to do some more tweaks than have that different when they're connecting internally. And then finally, we also have the monitoring and reporting. So we can view all the servers in the environment and sort of the CPU usage, network usage, and much more. And we can look at that over different time ranges. So we're looking over the last hour now. We can look back at the last 2 days, last 5 years, create your own time range, etc. And then we also have the reporting as well, and that's will drill down a little bit more into the users that have connected, the applications that they've used, how long the sessions have been, those sort of things. The versions of clients that they're connecting with. So that's another good report if you want to ensure that they're using the latest Parallels client. To make sure they're most up to date from a security point of view, then we can do that and see if there's any clients out there that are connecting without the latest version. And we could do that, I suppose, live from the device manager as well. We get a bit of information on the OS that's connected, client version that's connected as well. So I think that is it from a very quick demo point of view. Let me bring up my PowerPoint. So next steps, if you're interested in looking at remote application server in a bit more detail, please get in contact. We can help you with a proof of concept, or you can just go ahead and download the MSI essentially and install in your environment. Typically for testing, we recommend just create one server OS, maybe 2019. Doesn't need a lot of resource. Maybe 4 CPUs, 8 gig of RAM would be plenty. And you can install everything onto that one server and even deploy applications and desktops from that one server. So it's a great way of getting up and running with minimal infrastructure. Or you could head over to Trial in the Cloud, and if you search for Parallels in Azure or AWS, you'll find us in the marketplace, and in under 10 minutes you'll have a working instance in much the same manner, just an all-in-one setup. So that leaves me to say thank you very much for joining today. Hope you got some useful information out of that. If you have any questions, we do have sort of 5 minutes of the allotted time available. Please send them through. Can we get a copy of the slides, please? Yes. What I shall do, if I put in a response to that question and send you my email address, then you can just drop me an email and I'll send them through to you. So hopefully you've got that as a response. In fact, I'll pop it in the chat to everybody. So yeah, if you have any further questions, please get in contact and ask. Okay, well, I don't see any further questions coming through, so I'll just say again, thank you very much for your time. Have a great rest of the day. Bye for now.